Welcome, everybody, to episode 157 of WordPress Weekly for Friday, August 8th, 2014. I am your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by Marcus Couch, two in a row, and from what I know, possibly more in the future.
That's right. That's right. Good to be here, Jeff. Thanks. Thanks for joining us today. And we've got a very special guest that we'll talk to later on in the show.
Yes, we do. But before we get to that, a couple things we got to let you know about. Very important, actually, our first story is that WordPress 3.9.2 has been released, and it fixes a couple different security vulnerabilities, and users are strongly encouraged to update. According to the announcement, 3.9.2 fixes a possible denial of service issue in PHP's XML processing. Now, the bug was first reported by Nir Goldschlager of the Salesforce.com product security team and was fixed by Michael Adams and Andrew Nason of the WordPress security team. And what's fascinating about this particular release and this fix is that it was coordinated with the Drupal security team. So WordPress and Drupal both released new updated versions at the same time. And this, from what I've read, I think this may be the first time that's ever happened. Everybody's really happy, like throwing their hands up in the air, like, yeah, this is what open source is all about. And I think it's just fantastic to see two major content management system platforms collaborating on that type of release in the effort to keep users safe. So that's pretty cool. Now, this particular vulnerability actually is present in WordPress 3.5 all the way up to 3.9.1. And I say that because looking at the stats graph for WordPress versions in use, you can find this information available on WordPress.org. 26.8% of all WordPress sites will not be auto-updated. Now, remember, auto-updates were configured automatically in WordPress 3.7 to automatically upgrade you to point releases. Before that, anything below 3.7, you have to manually update. And 26.8% of all those sites are running on 3.6 or below. And of that number, 18.8% are still using WordPress 3.5. So I have a feeling that within the coming weeks here, I'm going to start reading articles in my feed reader saying something to the effect of major denial of service attack happening, major vulnerability in WordPress, yet it's already been patched, but these sites that are still running 3.5 and 3.6 are the ones being hit on a lot of these different web hosting accounts. So Marcus, what do you think? Two major platforms collaborating in the effort to keep users safe.
Yes, it's like the old term détente. It's when the U.S. and Russia combined forces and, vanquished evil together. What a great concept. If we could only get the Joomla folks on board, I don't know if they have security issues or what that are similar, but...
well, it has to do with XML, and I'm not sure if Joomla uses XML, XML RPC to do third-party communications and things of that nature. I don't even know if that platform uses that or if they use something else. Thankfully, in the near future, when WordPress implements the WordPress API utilizing JSON, one of the major benefits is that I think they're going to be able to remove XML RPC code and the reliance on it in WordPress, and everything will be JSON based. So that'll be pretty cool, and I think a lot of developers, especially those who interact with the protocol on an everyday basis, would be really happy about that.
And what release is that scheduled for?
Right now it's slated for WordPress 4.1, but as is the nature of open source development and WordPress development, that could change. But right now it looks very likely that it's going to be integrated with WordPress 4.1 so far. So you should have already had your WordPress sites updated, if you're running 3.7 or above. It's also worth noting that the point releases in the 3.7 and 3.8 branches, those were also patched. So even if you're using, if you're still on the 3.7 or 3.8 branch of WordPress, you're still able to receive these security updates. So it's pretty cool of WordPress to support at least 2 versions back. Anything below that is not supported. So make sure your sites are upgraded. Uh, let's see. Next story is that crowd favorite. Hey, they announced Chris Lemma as their new CTO, Chief Technology Officer.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring that up. I just want to say congratulations to Chris, uh, uh, crowd favorite, and the gentleman over there at the web development firm. He's just an incredible guy. He's got a lot of knowledge. Um, I think what's of particular interest to me, and I wrote about this on the Tavern, is his journey into WordPress and how he was able to really become what I consider to be sort of a leader or an authority in a particular aspect of WordPress. He actually has years of experience starting, managing, and selling startups, especially within the software as a service market. And with 20 years of experience under his belt, he's been helping others in the WordPress community by sharing stories of the lessons he's learned and the mistakes he's made using his blog. And his blog has become very popular. Uh, a lot of great stories over there on his blog and lessons. And since the software as a service market, even WordPress products, is so young, his voice and blog has quickly become a leading authority. So I think a combination of luck, experience, passion, personality, and timing helped him become an authority in the product space because he's been able to write about the business of WordPress from a perspective not many people have. And I also mentioned that as a contributing factor. So just overall congratulations to Chris. And I think crowd favorite will go to far places, with the addition of him, and he'll also be the voice of the company.
Yeah, I applaud this move. I think Chris is one of my favorite guys in the WordPress community. I've met him a couple times, being here in Southern California, where Chris is as well. And I applaud this move, and it's really going to bring a lot of things to crowd favorite. And Chris is not only great to learn from as far as WordPress functionality and some of the things that it reviews and talks about, but he also talks about the lifestyle of being a WordPress developer and some of the challenges that you face day to day. So it's really worth paying attention to Chris and his work individually as well as what he's doing now with Crowd Favorite as the CTO.
hmm So last thing I wanted to mention before we get on to our special guest, I came across this tip the other day. Uh, Now, if you need to switch, if you need to switch Jetpack accounts, but you don't have access to the WordPress.com website or account in order to reconnect it, what you can do is you can follow these steps. You can log into your self-hosted WordPress site and disconnect Jetpack. Then you create a new WordPress.com account, and then you connect your self-hosted WordPress site to Jetpack using the new account. And Jetpack's been developed in such a way that your stats and your subscribers and everything is tied to the actual domain, not so much so your WordPress account. So when you switch accounts, it should just keep humming along, and you shouldn't lose your stats or anything. But if you end up seeing some wonky behavior, see some things missing, you should definitely get in touch with the Jetpack support team. And I got in touch. George Stefanis, who's one of the members of the Jetpack developer team, he said that the process should be smooth and the stats should transfer automatically because he said sites are indexed by domain and path, so as long as those don't change and they still match up with what they have on file, it'll just work. So that's fantastic. I was happy to hear that because I've seen some support threads of people wondering how they can switch accounts, and if they do, will they lose other stats? And thankfully, in 99% of instances, as long as the domain is the same, nothing catastrophic should happen. So just overall, pretty neat on how that works. So don't have to worry about it if you need to switch accounts.
Yeah, I'm one of those people actually. So I've got an old WordPress.com account that I need to upgrade to something else. So
And you
it's
probably don't have access to the email to retrieve your password or to access that site, right?
maybe not, maybe not. So I'm gonna
That's
have to go
that's
through
a
that
perfect.
tip myself.
Yeah, see, that's a perfect scenario into why you would create a new site and then link it up to that because then you'd have access to it.
Absolutely. So it's a great tip.
All right, so with that out of the way, boy, I decided to do something a little different with today's show. For as long as we've been doing this show, which is 157 episodes, I've brought just a ton of very smart people on that are doing things, creating things, fixing things. Just a lot of awesome people in the WordPress community. And I thought, why don't I just take some time out and just be one to one with the listeners? Why don't I just sort of give you a take on some things that's going on in my life, some things I've been thinking about, just sort of a show where I can look back and be a little loose with my listeners here without really going in depth on anything. So what I've done here is I've asked Marcus Couch to sort of play the role as interviewer, and I'm going to play the role as interviewee. And I asked him to come up with some questions. I also asked on Twitter if anybody had questions for me they'd like to answer or like to have me answer. And we have a list of crowdsourced questions as well. So with that said, Marcus, I hope don't get me fired, and I'm gonna hand it over to you, and you're from here on out, except until when we're done here. You're the host of the show.
All right, Captain, I have the com. Thank you. Well, I just want to say, I think this is actually a good idea, and for me also, I've had the pleasure to kind of do some shows co-hosting with you over the last year, and done some writing on the tavern, and there's some funny things that I get to hear behind the scenes when I talk to you and chat with you, but I don't think that the listeners really know a heck of a lot beyond the WordPress umbrella, so to speak, that you hold over your head. So let's get right to it. Jeff, in 2007, Jeff Chandler began using WordPress as his preferred platform of choice with the goal of making a new site. And in the beginning, Jeff started out just like many of us have. He bought a domain, hosting, and a few tools, and while he had a good inkling as to what the site should look like, he had no clue as to where to begin. A complete development newbie. Am I right here?
Yeah, okay. So far, you're right. It almost sounds like I wrote this somewhere.
Yeah. Though WordPress was suggested repeatedly, Jeff never could figure it out and opted to use Joomla as his starter platform. Gosh. Soon after initial work began, Joomla was deemed to be a bit too complex for his needs, so he gave WordPress one more chance. And since then, he's never looked back. As his experience grew using WordPress, Jeff started out writing WordPress-related blogs on things like weblogtoolscollection.com and wphacks.com. And later, Jeff grew to found wptavern.com. WordPress Tavern is one of the most successful WordPress communities online, as well as the host of WordPress Weekly, one of the most trusted podcast sources for WordPress news, information, and featured special guests. His insights have not only provided timely information to WordPress users around the globe, but he's also helped to shape what the WordPress community represents as a whole, adopting a non-promotional, unbiased principle that has resonated within the entire WordPress community. Welcome to the show, Jeff Chandler.
Hold on, let me go get my Kleenex. This is like my cue to cry, man. I feel like I'm on Oprah and you're making me cry, except I don't have a book club.
That's right. So let's talk, man. Let's go way back, even before WordPress, even probably before your experience with computers, and we'll get into all that. But kind of give me a picture of what it was like growing up for you.
Oh, let's see. Well, boy, I've never dove into this subject before. I mean, you're going way back. As it turns out, I grew up on the west side of Cleveland for the majority of my life. Uh, some of the best moments of my life happened, during that time period. Um,
Like what?
Well, I mean, I was always big into sports, so baseball on the side street, flag football. We go down to the park, play baseball there. I was very much into sports. I ended up being the oldest kid in my neighborhood, so I was always the one picked. I was always the one that everybody else wanted to have on their team.
Oh.
So it worked out pretty nice in that way for me.
You have
I
brothers and
was
sisters growing up?
no, I have one half sister.
Okay.
I don't have any brothers, but I had a lot of great friends that I grew up with. I do have a half brother, but I haven't seen or spoken to him in a while, which I'll have to remedy probably sometime after this show. But that's pretty much it. Really into sports, getting through school, making sure I don't get beat up on the west side of Cleveland. That's pretty much my life.
Yeah. And so when did computers come into play for you? How old were you then?
And basically those same sort of years. I remember, boy, you remember Gateway, the computers with the moo cows on them, the cow
Hmm.
designs. So I know my mom had a Gateway computer. My dad had a computer upstairs, so I'd always use my mom's computer. And this was back when 56K was like blazing fast. Uh, I'm
Yeah.
30 years old talking about technology like it's been around forever. But so 56K is my idea of super slow. Um, so I messed around on a computer back then and used to play games on there like Quake 1, Quake 2. Eventually, my dad gave me some parts to build my own machine, so I learned how to build a computer from the hardware up, cases, power supplies, things of that nature. And I thought it was really fun for me. It was fascinating me. It was like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah, isn't that like the modern rite of passage? It used to be you'd work on the car in the garage with your dad, and now
Yeah,
you can't even work on
the
the car.
computer was my car. You got that right. A lot less greasy too.
Right. Yeah.
Unless you're messing with thermal grease on the CPU die, for heat thermal transfer. Anyways, that's yeah. So I learned computers that way through the hardware on up, and then geez, I don't know how many times I've formatted hard drives, installed Windows, uh, doing everything of that nature.
Yeah.
My first computer was
Having
actually AMD K6 350. Is it K6 or K2? I think it was a K6 350 megahertz processor, and that thing was a dog. I very much preferred my mom's Intel Pentium 2 that was in her computer. But so I used that, and I played on the computer all day. Saved up enough money to buy graphics cards. Remember 3DFX Voodoo?
hmm
Voodoo, some of the awesome cards. I had a Voodoo 2 and a Voodoo 3, fantastic cards, and um, ended up learning software, playing games. That was mostly what I did as a teenager outside of going to school. Then broadband, uh, the advent of broadband, where we ended up connecting to DSL 1.5 megs down from Ameritech. And I'll never forget that day because we all crowded around the monitor after it was hooked up. We launched Napster,
Of
Napster at the
course.
time, and did a couple searches for some MP3s, and it was amazing to see them being downloaded. These 3 or 4 minute songs at 1 meg a second or 2 megs a second, or 800 kilobytes or something along those lines, or 150 or whatever. I can't do the math, but it was just
Hmm.
really really fast. So that was really neat, and then started getting involved with online communities, online gaming. Once we had the broadband, and this sort of leads into how I got into WordPress because during those years in my youth, I participated in a couple of different what they call clans, groups, just sort of
Like,
like groups where you get together in different games. So I was in a couple different clans, and we actually would use Joomla. Joomla was the big one. First it was Post Nuke. It was PHP Nuke, then it was Post Nuke. Then we started using Joomla, and somehow, some way, I ended up being the one that would learn the ins and outs of the CMS of choice. This was actually during the time when I finally had a grasp of how to use Photoshop, which at one point was just such. I mean, you want to talk about intimidating software? Photoshop was it to me. So I used PaintShop Pro forever, but After doing a couple tutorials of Photoshop, I really started to get the hang of it. I got the Photoshop bug, and I was creating graphics, redoing images, messing around with themes. Um, but with this clan, we used to have these matches. We were in these tournaments, and I was the content guy, so I would be the one writing the stories, talking about what we're doing. I would write news posts for other websites, for the gaming communities I was active in, and just sort of that. I just look back at that and say, I've always been this content guy, this content generation guy, whether it's for clans, gamings, personal use. It wasn't too long after that where I had my personal blog, and that's where really things kind of took off for me. Being
So
able to write
that's
more about than just what's going on in the gaming world and expanding to a new audience.
so that's really what prompted you when you originally were trying to find a solution for another site, and you ended up on WordPress. Was it a gaming site?
No, no, it was in 2006, whenever the Web 2.0 thing started going off, where sites with missing vowels and services and these generators were popping up all over the place. I was talking with a couple of people, and someone said, you should create a website where you review all these services. And I said, okay, that seems like not a bad idea. I could do that. So I created a website. I got the domain jeffro2pt0.com, which is the worst domain ever, I found out. It was a play on the whole Web 2.0 thing. And I needed to figure out what CMS I was going to use to write content for the site. So initially, of course, I'm thinking Joomla, because that's the one I'm most familiar with. So I installed Joomla, installed a couple of different themes I'm thinking of using, but I end up not using it because I have to manipulate the code, and it doesn't have comments. It didn't have comment support out of the box, which was huge for me because I wanted to have this community. I wanted people to give feedback and reviews, or leave comments on my reviews. So,
And it's interesting. I'm going to interrupt you there because that was you planted the seed even that early. You wanted to get community before you even knew what platform you were going to use.
right, right, and part of that was because I was on a blogging network called EFX2, and I liken it to the WordPress.com before WordPress.com existed, or at least I knew that they existed. And EFX2 was really cool because you could have your own subdomain, username.efx2.com. You'd have your own little blog. You had these templates to choose from. But the best thing about it was the comments and the network effect of being within that community. So I could follow different people in this group, that were into technology. I would leave comments on their site. They'd come over, leave comments on my site. We have these shout boxes on our site so we could leave little messages and comments. The whole community thing was awesome. I mean, that's I think that's one of the number one traits that even sites like today, WordPress.com has, is that network effect. So utilizing that and the experience of what I had there is what I wanted to try and replicate with the Jeffro 2.0, the site about Web 2.0 stuff, which I did actually. And well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but so I went to use Joomla, too much for me. I went to WordPress, found out that it was too hard to manipulate the code. I had to mess with PHP, so I says, the hell with this. I'm going to go back to Joomla. Then I used Joomla. I says, you know what, Joomla's too much for what I need. I'll give WordPress one more shot. And once I started to understand that it wasn't huge blocks of PHP I'm messing with, it's one line, two lines. There's these things called arguments. There's parameters, and you can change things just changing a number or changing this and that. It was actually very easy, and that's kind of when I first got the WordPress blog, and from there I just I took off, man. I fell in love with it.
So what did you think was the hardest thing about it, as far as when you first got started? What was the biggest limitation where once you got started, you went, man, I really need to learn this skill if I'm going to be good at WordPress?
Well, it was, once I got the bug, that's it. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to install this plugin. I'm going to install this theme. I know what I'm doing. I know enough to be dangerous. I'm going to follow the directions. This is 7 years ago, back when plugins and themes routinely had directions in the README file that says, go to this line of code, add this. Go to this line of code, and if you want to manipulate this, you have to paste in this code. So, and actually, that whole aspect of WordPress I mean, not to get way ahead of ourselves, but I mean that's 7 years ago. I mean, if you look at WordPress today and how it's evolved, with plugins, GUIs, options, and everything else that you're able to do without even looking at the code,
Yep.
I sometimes I think about it and I sometimes wonder, I, I was able to dive into the code and sort of understand it a little bit, kind of get to know how it works and how it functions with parameters and whatnot. How many other people now, because of WordPress and how it works, will not ever see the code, will not ever get inside, change the parameters, look and see how things actually work. Now, unless you're really intent on being a developer, I just sometimes wonder how much of an effect that has on some of these new up and coming developers or tinkerers for
And not just
WordPress.
that, not just that, but if you look at modern times, there are even WordPress installations out there where there are users and contributors that never even see the back end. It's all front end, which is
Exactly.
crazy to think that.
But I mean, there was no particular skill I was set out to learn. I had the bug. I knew what to do. I knew how to install plugins. I knew how to install themes. So I says, let's go, go, go. And if I ran into problems, I did Google searching. I went to the WordPress.org support forums. I went to the support forums for the actual plugin author, which in many cases was leaving a comment on their website. That was their support uh, way of getting and receiving support responses. And just started hammering things on one after another. And as I installed this plugin or this plugin and this theme, and I started manipulating things, I would share my experiences and the things I've learned and the things I broke on the website. And at the time, WordPress is still pretty young. I think a lot of people gravitated towards, especially plugin reviews and theme reviews, because there weren't that many back then.
Right, right. So then that led you to kind of contribute to other sites, correct? I mean, talking about WordPress and on your own, as far as weblog tools and WP hacks, and what brought you to kind of make that jump to say, you know what, I think I can contribute to this whole thing.
So I was pretty successful in writing and reviewing Web 2.0 sites and services. In fact, I I remember one of my most successful reviews was Invite Share. I don't know if anybody out there is listening remembers Invite Share, but there were so many sites. This whole beta thing, we had to get invites. It,
Uh,
it got it got to a point where a new site would launch, they would have these invites, and invites would end up going on eBay. People would sell them to be this fascination of being the first to try a new service. And Invite Share was a website that was set up to where any other new site or service that had invites to give, you could go to Invite Share and it would have, I don't know, let's say 100 to give, and the first 100 people that sign up through Invite Share would get the invite. And I think you could share invites as well. So I wrote about that and was actually had that featured on TechCrunch. So that was that was pretty cool. I actually made a deal. I don't know. I actually made a couple deals on how this worked, where for every Web 2.0 site or service I reviewed, I told the person uh, that was behind it, okay, look, I wrote a review about you. Now you have to put a link to the review from your website.
Look at you. Look at
And
that.
at the time, oh my goodness, it was like I thought I was a genius at the time. That really worked. That worked well for me. It really built up my traffic and had a lot of repeat visitors. And that invite share post, boy, that was the most popular post on that site for a long time because of that relationship I would have with the people I was writing reviews for.
And
But
did you put affiliate links on those?
no, no, never
See,
used
look at
affiliate
you.
links.
You were
I,
squeaky clean even back then.
oh, jeez. Yeah, I never used affiliate links. Um, so as I got the WordPress blog, as I have this site and I'm writing about Web 2.0 stuff, I end up writing more and more about my experiences, WordPress plugins, WordPress themes, until it gets to a point where I'm really starting to just write about WordPress all the time. And as it turns out, uh, unsolicited by me, I get this email from a gentleman named Mark Ghosh. Turns out he was the owner and operator of WeblogToolsCollection.com. This is near the end of 2008. It was might be near the end of 2007, going into 2008.
I
And he,
think
and he
so.
sends me an email and he says, would you be interested in writing and contributing WordPress stuff to weblawtoolscollection.com? Oh, and by the way, this would be a paid job. So I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Is this a joke? Because weblawtoolscollection.com, I knew was in the dashboard of all the WordPress sites. It was the largest uh, site devoted to WordPress at the time. So I'm thinking, is this guy joking? So I sent him an email that says, is it possible to be paid to write about WordPress? He says, oh yeah, sure, and he tells me, he lists out the expectations he has for me, and I say, I'm sold, I'll do it. So that's fantastic. I don't even know. I haven't even. I would like to speak with him again to find out how he initially came across my website with me writing about WordPress. But I didn't go around asking people, hey, you want me to write for you, write about WordPress for you? He came to me. So that's.
And what were you doing for work at that time?
I was still working at the grocery store. I've worked at the grocery store in retail for 13 years. So I was still, grocery store person by night, doing WordPress stuff by day, and then on my nights off, I'd have nothing to do but write about the blog and interact with the community all night. Which I'm glad I did all that because I'm in a pretty good place right now.
Yeah.
So I wrote about WordPress on weblawtoolscollection.com for I think a year, and I wrote some of my best articles I've ever written about WordPress around that website. And after a year, that's when I heard about Kyle Easlick. He was of WPHacks.com. He had a domain available called WP Tavern, and I was at work one night, and I'm thinking, WP Tavern, that sounds like an interesting website. What happens at a tavern? Well, you're around friends, you talk about things, it's a friendly atmosphere, and I says, what if I turn WP Tavern and I take all that, those elements of what you do in a tavern, and I make it a WordPress site, like a WordPress community site. And so I wrote this detailed blog post on my personal site saying, here's what I'm planning on doing, here's my idea, and unanimously the community, the people who have been following me on weblawtoolscollection.com said, that's a great idea, go for it, we'll follow you, we'll populate your website over there. And sure enough, I launched this, I bought the domain, he gave it to me. In fact, he may have even donated it to me, just gave it to me because I was going to use it for a WordPress-centric website. And I installed a theme, installed some plugins, got the forum rolling. Next thing you know, I had a populated forum. We had a nucleus core group of people that were there just to be part of the fun and really there to help the site really just take off.
Yeah, and I looked in internetarchive.org and I pulled up the very first
fantastic.
post. And you launched it January 2009,
Mm-hmm.
and on your very first post you listed 3 goals, and I'll list them here. 1, be successful. 2, foster a community. And 3, make the site a sole source of income. Now that was your very first post. And I find that to be of particular importance, especially because of the order. Because most people, especially in modern times, flip that order around and they say, number 1 goal is make the site a sole source of income. So you kind of put that last after success and fostering a community. So how do you feel that you've done at those 3 individually, and what do you think you can improve on each individually?
Well, the reason why I put be successful first is because at that point in my life, nothing I ever did was I deemed successful. I've learned now that success and what that means is subjective, just like, everything in life apparently. Success to me was getting the site to be popular. Of course, having that community, that was also part of the success. And being able to, in fact, turn it into my full-time job, it being the reason why I have an income. That was all sort of part of just factors of what I would consider success, which is why I put that first. So I figured if I worked towards doing everything I could to improve the site, improve the membership of the community, just kept writing articles that I was putting all the ingredients there to increase my chances of it being successful, in me being successful. And the community part there is community has always been really important to me because I'm not the smartest. I'm not the smartest bulb on the tree. I guess that you can some weird Ohio saying. I'm not the smartest guy. The community, the comments, those people, those people bring up ideas. I've been a big fan of comments for as long as I can remember. In fact, articles on the tavern point this out. But I mean, community is really important. It's a place where you can go to talk about whatever you want. Almost the people there, the environment I created, the atmosphere. People were friendly. There was no such thing as stupid questions. We had some heated debates, but everybody was respectful of each other 99% of the time. So I mean, that was really important. And then the whole make the site a sole source of income. So I figured, well, I've already been paid to write about WordPress. Maybe I could do this on my own and increase the amount of money I can make. So I'm thinking, okay, there's affiliate reviews. I could sell banner advertising. I could do things of that nature. Unfortunately, I'm not a marketer. I'm not very big into that. And I saw a lot of that stuff I was doing as nasty black hat SEO, yucky stuff on how to make money because I didn't, as a web user myself, I didn't very much appreciate clicking affiliate links and doing all that banner advertising. I installed AdBlock Plus. I didn't want to deal with that. So the things I was against, here I am doing to try and make a buck. So that was always a very difficult balance, trying to incorporate on making the money. But within 2 or 3 years of running the site, boy, I had some ups and I had some downs, almost some permanent downs.
Well, what were those?
Well, I mean, it's
Let's talk about the downs because you're on an upswing in modern times, but let's figure out what the downs were.
Well, the downs were mostly due to income.
Yeah.
I was trying to. I really wanted to earn my keep. Publish articles, publish reviews, work, be my own boss, and the money I make is all in direct, or should be in direct comparison to how much I'm working, the hard work and the effort I put into the site. But it didn't work out that way. It got to a point, after 2 years or so, where I felt like I was begging people to buy banner advertising, and I have no idea what I should have been charging. I have no idea looking at the analytics, the stats. I figured, well, this sounds fair to me, and I probably undervalued myself. I think most people undervalue their work and their worth. I'm an excellent example of that, and a couple of times I got to the point where I'm not making the bread that I need to make in order to make this sustainable. So I've got to do one or two things. I've got to go out and get another job to make more money, which I tried to do. It didn't work out too well. Or I got to sell the site. And unfortunately, I ended up selling the site. I say unfortunately. I shouldn't say it like that, but I mean, unfortunately, it came down to the fact that I needed to sell the site in order to get by. I should say it that way. But there's no one I could sell the site better to than who I sold it to.
Which was?
Well, I was this close to selling it to WP Candy, which was another site at the time, very popular site, writing about WordPress news and events. But I was so close. I was an email away, and I ended up sending an email to Matt Mullenweg, and I said, hey, this is what I've got going on. I'm going to sell the site. This is why. And I told him, I have someone that's going to buy the site, and this is how much they're going to purchase it for. And he gave me a much better offer, told me that after everything I've done and contributed to the WordPress world and community, that I'm severely undervaluing myself. So he gave me a counter offer that was pretty much something I couldn't refuse, and I ended up selling the site to him. I mean, come on. I mean, who can say that they created a WordPress website and sold it to the co-creator of WordPress? I mean, it's still one of the highlights of my life.
You're the only one that can say that, as far as I know.
Well, Mark Ghosh can say that too,
That's
because
true.
weblawtoolscollection.com was also sold to Matt Mulloway.
So after that happened, how did things change for you, both personally and professionally within WordPress?
Well,
I'm sure the first
I
thing.
was
Let me say this. I bet the first thing is everybody said sell out, right?
no, actually, that's not the case. I
Oh,
think
it was
because
just me
of
then. It was only me.
yeah, it was only you. Because I've nurtured and placed so much importance on the community, and I've met people at word camps. I've talked to them every day on Twitter. They knew me. They knew me as a person. I was there. I was interacting. I was on the site all day, every day, spending time replying to comments, writing articles. I mean, I was in the thick of it with WordPress, so people knew me, and I had the support. I mean, the tavern, the forum, the people that were there. Uh, I mean, let's put it this way. Uh, a lot of WordPress companies were purchasing advertising not because it was a good business decision on their part, but simply because they wanted to support me and my efforts and what I was doing. Which in a way is, in a nutshell, what the WordPress community is all about. I mean, that still exists and that still happens. But I had a lot of people that were supporting me. So when I announced that I had sold the site or was going to, there was a lot of people that were just sad, saying, maybe there's another way. Maybe you could sell VIP memberships. Maybe you could do this. Maybe you could do that. I wasn't interested in all that. I didn't want to do affiliate fees anymore because I was ending up in a position where the only content I was generating was that in which I could make a buck from, and there's a lot more content out there to write than just that. So, just all of that combined, I mean, it was a huge change. Thankfully, Matt allowed me to. We made a relationship decision here to where I could still maintain the tavern site and still contribute to it, although he owned it. So I did that for a while, and then got to the point where I was spending so much time, doing WordPress stuff again that I was not making the money. It was a money issue again. So I made an announcement saying, okay, that's it. I'm done. I've made a decision. I'm getting out of WordPress. I can't make the money. I got to go somewhere where I need to make some money. I'm doing a whole career change. And again, everybody was sad and supportive and very appreciative of what was going on, giving me ideas and things of that nature.
And what time frame was this? When was this?
Well, probably 2 years ago,
Yeah.
because last year in May is when the announcement came out of who purchased the site, but I had actually been maintaining the site for a number of months before that. So I reached this point where I'm going to leave the WordPress community, just stop writing about WordPress, and I get in touch with Scott Riley, who at the time and who's still employed with Audrey Capital, and he says, "What would it take? Write me a sort of proposal and what it would take to have you sort of stick around and maybe do this full time." So me and him, we talked. I wrote some proposals. Uh, Bada bing, bada boom. Next thing you know, I did some negotiations with between him and Matt and Audrey, and ended up with a position working full time, maintaining the tavern. And holy smokes, all these years later, after people have said, you should work for Automatic, Matt should hire you, I end up working for him, which thankfully not under the Automatic umbrella, because then I would be tied to just working on WordPress.com and things of that nature. I'm able to. I have the freedom to write about the things that interest me the most, and maintain the site that I helped found and built. And Matt is just helping me keep the lights on while I do it.
Yeah. So explain the dynamic though, because the tavern used to be more of I guess, a bigger community in the sense of the interaction and the forum-like capability of it. But now it's strictly kind of news and, you know, commenting on the particular news stories. What brought about that change, and is that ever going to come back?
Oh boy. Well, let's see. How do I answer this? Well, I'll say one thing. I've harped on this before. But one of the things I miss most on the tavern right now is the forum.
Yeah.
I have it archived, I have it available, I have the data, I have the posts, so nothing has been lost. But there's no place on the tavern where I can just use as an outlet to just mingle with people or just say, "Hey, look what's going on over here." Sort of use as a hub, so to speak. And now it's all going. It's all pretty much gone towards the outlet is the blog, and the interaction is all through comments, which is okay, but it's not. It's not a forum. It's not like the forum, and people don't have the ability to create conversations or create topics of discussion. Uh, because it's Sarah and I running the blog. It's not like a forum. So one thing I've harped on, and something I hope that will become a reality in the not too distant future, is a return of a forum, most likely BBPress. I know the latest release of BBPress future release of BBPress 2.5.6, I think, or 2.6, one of those versions is going to have the ability to replace the comment form in WordPress, comments to BBPress topics. So it's sort of melding the worlds of forums and blogs and comments all together in one. So I'll be interested to see how that works out. But as far as the content and the interaction and things that happen on the site now, there are reasons why it's like that. I'm going to get some more clarification. I have to get more clarification on that myself in terms of expectations, output, and a lot of this sort of goes into just the nature of being a remote worker.
Sure, and understandably, I mean, you've stated your position. You miss the forums, and you hope that they come back. I mean, that's really where you're at with it.
And not only I, but a lot of people that help generate content and was a part of the tavern at that time want to see the forums come back. Whether they're either all that data in the forums that we used when we end up using BBPress, or if we end up having forums again, or at least have it publicly archived somewhere, which I'm going to work on doing at some point.
Yeah. Oh, I was reading something on your personal blog, and you kind of were talking about staying relevant within WordPress. In essence, you kind of described how, 5 or 6 years ago you would know everything, and we all did. We all knew everything that was going on at all times and everything in the world of WordPress. But right now, it's really kind of impossible, noting that hundreds of new products and plugins are being released every week, and sometimes there's 50 to 75 plugins, at least even in the repository, being released every day. So how do we expand of that in that as far as being relevant, and do you think it's going to become ever increasingly segmented as far as news? I mean, are we going to have WordPress plugin only sites, WordPress theme only sites, people only talking about WordPress security or WordPress mobile? Where do you think all that's going to go?
Well, the easy answer to that question is we already have. It already exists. We already have sites devoted to WordPress security. We already have sites dedicated to plugins, e-commerce, platforms, apps, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. The segments, the verticals, education, they're all there. They're already being utilized. The basis of that post is that 5 or 6 years ago, I knew the internals. I knew what was going on. I had a feel for where WordPress was going. I knew the features that were going into it. I knew sort of the importance of the development work that was taking place on WordPress. And if I look at the general landscape today of news and topics, it seems like there's an insatiable appetite for WordPress content dealing with e-commerce, with WordPress as an app platform or foundation framework. Now there's all this talk and hype about the WordPress API, REST, JSON, development speak, development lingo, and I just wonder if I'll be able to stay relevant with WordPress topics and still. Right now, I don't feel like I have a good handle on where WordPress is going. I think your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
In terms of how it's being developed, where it's going, its future. I have no idea now. I mean, back then it was all about blogging, and I know the overall goal here is to democratize publishing, but now I mean you get these. I don't know. You get these APIs, or moving away from blogging and turning WordPress into this and turning WordPress into that. E-commerce and all this other stuff. I don't. I think it's hard for me to sort of get a grasp on all this stuff that's happening to WordPress, and in some aspects, some of that stuff doesn't interest me, and some of the stuff that people seem to have an appetite for, that content, what they want to hear, what they want to know about, what they want to read, is content I can't produce because I can't write about something I'm not interested in. I mean, I can. It's just it's exceptionally difficult.
Right. Yeah, it's like who's going to be the first one to come up with a box that hooks to your TV that the internals run on WordPress? It's going to happen.
It probably already happens. I don't know. It's probably already something out there. I mean, I was reading the other day. Somebody wanted to know what's the most out of the box crazy thing you've seen with WordPress, and somebody said they used it on their XM something box PC in order to create a movie database of all the movies they have. So it's somebody's probably already hacked away and created something like that. But I mean, the verticals are there. I mean, if I had a suggestion for anyone, I'd say, if you're going to create a WordPress site and just cover the news and events going on, uh, great. But that's that. We need more voices. Don't get me wrong. We need more voices. We need more opinions. All that stuff is great. But I mean, if you're thinking about making a business, or you really want to hit the nail on things that people want to read about and know about, e-commerce and education and a couple other verticals. Those are the ones to sort of aim towards.
Absolutely. So, as we kind of close things out here, what do you think what's your future plans as far as, what topics would you like to get into that you haven't yet? What stuff would you like to do on the podcast that you haven't yet? What are your goals that are still yet unfulfilled?
Uh, my goal is to not get fired.
Well,
But no, I
thus
mean,
the weekly show, right?
well, um, well, now that the tavern is owned by Matt Mullowick, it's his. It's not mine. There is someone above me that makes decisions in terms of what they want the site to be, their vision, and things of that nature. And right now, I'll be honest, I'm not exactly sure what that vision is. What I should be working towards. Of course, I'm gonna take care of that on my own. Uh, Coming up here at WordCamp San Francisco when I go there, but there's this now interesting dynamic where when I owned the tavern and I was doing everything, I knew what I wanted to do and I did it. Now, there's sort of I have to go through a chain of command almost, I guess, so to speak,
Yeah,
and really
it's like
just one person. But I
right. It's
mean,
like
I
getting
can't just do what I want to do. I can't just implement things I want to implement. I can't. That is all gone. I know how I have to align. I mean, I have some things I want to do, which I've passed along as suggestions. But I mean, ultimately, it's what he wants, what he decides, and the result is the agreement between us, pretty much.
sure. And granted, what a great mentor to at least guide it. I mean, he's made some pretty good decisions along the way already.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's he's one thing I got to say is he's been extremely hands off. I mean, it's evident in our content. He's extremely hands off in terms of editorial direction. He doesn't tell us what to write about. Doesn't tell us how to write about it. Uh, I mean, which is incredibly important, especially for a site like the Tavern, where it's trusted and expected to have be unbiased, so to speak. I mean, I knew that was a big sticky point with the announcement post that Matt had purchased the tavern. That, oh no, he's now going to control the media. But I think as the content has shown so far, and it will continue to in the future, that's not really a worry, and nobody should be worried about anybody controlling the WordPress media.
No, I don't think so, and it's evident by seeing how many people cite the specific posts that you and Sarah both create, in blog form on the Tavern. Almost every WordPress podcast out there starts with a story that comes from WP Tavern.
Hmm.
Almost every, when news breaks, you're like CNN. It typically breaks with you. So that's something to be,
Yeah,
pretty.
or that damn post status. Whoever that guy is over there running. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for frenemies. Post status is an awesome resource, and it's written by my buddy Brian Kreisgard. Just want to throw that out there.
Exactly. Well, and that brings us kind of to the conclusion, I guess, of the interview, which is, you've been kind of this light for a lot of different people, and oftentimes when people are, staring blankly in their dashboard, they see that news feed, and at least sometimes it's of the issue that they're having the most difficulty with, whether that be specific plugins that you're talking about, or themes, or new advances within WordPress. Um, I don't know one person that's been a WordPress user or administrator that hasn't gotten some value from the content that's been created within the Tavern. So
Well,
I
there's a
just
lot of
want
people that would disagree with you. That would say
to.
that the dashboard is full of crap. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that the dashboard, the news feeds, the sites that are in there, uh, you know, there's a lot of things that could be removed. I think there's quite a few sites that could be added. But I mean, think about it. If you're going to be in the dashboard, that planet feed, that goes out to every the articles, the content goes out to every WordPress install that doesn't have the dashboard news feed, disabled or the widget hidden. So I mean, that's a powerful voice. It's a powerful megaphone you have if you get added to that news feed. So I got to say, it's a huge responsibility. And but I do think the dashboard could be vastly improved in terms of the content that's there and just the actual Planet website itself.
Yeah, don't you think that even within that news thing, shouldn't we get some sort of a tab that has, the latest videos we can just play, and things like that? I think that would really help, even
Oh,
in
you mean well? I
tutorials
mean,
from.
well, all that stuff is added to just one feed, the news feed. So I mean, WordPress.tv or the development blog or my blog or post status or some of these other sites is all kind of shoved into this just one feed. Um, I don't know. I think there's room for improvement there, both on the Planet feed and the website itself. But it's all in terms of priorities, and it's not the end of the world with the dashboard and the Planet feed as it is now. So
All right. Well, Jeff Chandler, thanks for joining me in the hot seat. I do appreciate it,
yeah, will
and
I be
we'd like
will I be back
we'd,
next week for another
we'd
show? I'm
love to
not.
we'd love to have you come back sometime and update us on the status of the tavern and the show.
All right. Well, hopefully I show up next week. I'll still be here, rocking and rolling. Does this mean I'm the guest now? I mean, the host? Can I be the host now?
Yes, we can switch back. You can have the
Woo!
captain's chair.
All right, all right. So
It's not very comfortable of a
that was
chair.
a fantastic interview with Jeff Chandler, Jeff Rohu, and but that was interesting experience. I'd like to do this more often. Maybe if I have a couple topics I want to sound off on, every now and then I'm gonna do a show where it's just a soapbox, just to sort of get some things off my chest that normally I don't have a chance to. I just want to talk about
Hmm.
and clear the air and see what everybody else thinks. But I wanted to say that the show, in fact, WordPress Weekly, speaking of changes, is moving to a new day and time. So now instead of Fridays in the afternoon, we're going to do this live Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, which is a half hour after the conclusion of the Dragcast. So we're not kind of conflicting with them and what those awesome folks are doing over there with the Dragcast. And this is not to go into detail, but it's more of it helps me out in my personal life. It's a better time for a lot of things. The house will be empty. I'll have the show to myself, and I think guests will be. I think there's a high increased chance of guests being available on a Wednesday night at 9 o'clock or whatever time instead of Friday afternoon. And I just kind of got sick of spending my entire Friday working on this show, and in terms of show notes and publishing and all that other stuff. So this will free up my Fridays and be able to enjoy the weekend a little quicker, a little easier. So every Wednesday night, 9:30 Eastern time. That's when we're going to start doing WordPress Weekly.
I think the show is going to be a lot more fun at night.
Should I take the family-friendly tag off on iTunes? You think I should? I don't know. I don't know if I should do that.
No, not unless you have to.
Not unless I have to. That's right. So we'll see what happens. So that's going to do it for this episode of WordPress Weekly, the show all about Jeffro. You can find show notes for this episode, which I don't know what show notes are going to be, but all previous episodes on WPTavern.com. You can follow me on Twitter, which is JEFFR0. Jeffro and Marcus, how about you?
At Marcus Couch on Twitter.
And that's it. And MarcusCouch.com, in case we want to know what's going on. And that's a wrap. So our first new show will be next Wednesday night, and Pippin Williamson will be our first guest. So it'll almost be like late night, like I don't know, on those TV shows, but like the WordPress version.
Yeah, I like that it's a half hour after Dreadcast. That gives them time to pee and come back.
Yeah, because everybody that listens and watches that show drinks something.
That's right. Yeah.
They hydrate during that hour of the night.
So let's go to the tavern after. That's the perfect thing.
Right. So everybody, enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you next Wednesday night.